So I started getting harassed around the time of the royal wedding. The moment that people knew I disagreed with some things about my sisters.
I grew up as an only child, and I wished I had siblings.
It's like everything. It's lie upon lie upon lie.
Hello to all my gorgeous, good-looking friends. You are tuning into TRG's series covering the Markle vs. Markle defamation lawsuit. If you are new to the channel, welcome. For those who are returning, thank you for coming back and supporting my work. I'm always grateful to have this like-minded community to discuss the beloved royal family and the cultural impact of its members on society, particularly in America. Okay, before I get into this, let me just put the disclaimer. I am not a legal expert. I am simply just reading what's in the public court files and giving my interpretation and observations/opinions. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusion. Okay, so we have a motion to dismiss hearing coming up on February 15th, 2023 for this case. We're not sure which way this is going to go, but Meghan and her team feel overly confident that it will get dismissed, and I think this video should take a look at why they feel this way. So here we go. Meghan went ahead and raised a motion to dismiss by submitting 2 dockets on June 17th, 2022. And in these dockets, they challenged Samantha Markle's claims and statements, trying to break the nexus, connecting Meghan back to the statements mentioned in Finding Freedom, and then separating the book Finding Freedom from the Oprah Winfrey interview, thus blowing up Samantha's entire case, which, good try, but I'm going to show you why that's not going to work. So let's start from the beginning with the first document. And what Meghan has to prove really is the complaint has flaws with it. The statements that are being made are not factual, and the documentation that has been provided is incomplete. So what we're seeing with this document is a lot of deflection and confusion by reverting back to the first document that was submitted initially by Samantha and then comparing it to the first amended case. What they're missing here, which I'm not sure if the first amended case supersedes the case that was submitted initially and all the documentation there, but let me just state that when Samantha submitted the lawsuit, in the first initial submission, there were 118 pages of information that she supplied. So she gave documentation within these exhibits. In the FAC, which is the first amended case that they're comparing now, it's only been whittled down to 15 pages, but there's no amendments connected to it. So I'm not sure if there is a revert back to the first one in Florida. That's not something that I would have any idea about. But if you guys know, just drop me a line down in the comment section. But anyway, so Meghan is contesting or challenging that Samantha deliberately eliminated certain things that were in the initial submission and then tying it back and forth. I mean, it's a lot of confusion. So if you haven't been following this story for the last 5 years or even have an idea as to what has been going on, not only here in the United States, but also in the UK, which that very well might be the case because our media has been suppressed, this could very well be manipulated in a way that could sway the judge to think otherwise. It could be actually really tough to follow, especially not knowing that there's so many details that this dismissal is guilty of leaving out. So let's take a look at this document a little closer. This document begins with full-blown arrogance by saying that it is a meritless defamation case and accuses Samantha of abandoning roughly half of her case, which is not true. Anyhow, they then go into stripping it down to saying now the FAC now alleges that only 10 statements were defamatory, and they put an appendix. And as you can see here, these are the 10 statements. Now, this dismissal is going to be weighted on. This is what Meghan's legal team is focused on in proving that this case should be dismissed. So their document does take a moment to present what they believe are the facts. So let's take a look at Section A. Plaintiff alleged and Meghan denies that Scobie and Duran reached out to Meghan, including through Knopf. Plaintiff asserted that Knopf agreed to speak to the authors on background and that Meghan sent him an email with some background reminders before he did. A supposed copy of that December 10, 2018 email was attached as Exhibit 1 to the complaint, which was in docket 1 through 2. Plaintiff alleged that the email contained 7 supposedly defamatory statements. So they continue and they say Scobie and Duran's book, Finding Freedom, was eventually published in August 2020. Plaintiff alleged that the book contained 7 purportedly false and defamatory statements about her. Among many other problems, the statements were made by Scobie and Duran, not by Meghan. Indeed, virtually none of Scobie and Duran's statements in the book had any nexus whatsoever to Meghan's December 2018 email. Oh, really? You want to bet? Let me show you. Let's go back in time to November 12, 2018, where Meghan, also known as M, sends Jason Knopf an email, and it states, "Morning, Jason. I hope all is well. I meant to reach out to you this weekend to set a time to speak this week, but woke up to some sobering texts from my mom saying she feels unsafe. With that said, I feel a greater sense of urgency to sit down with you. Would you have some time to talk this afternoon? Would love to debrief a few things, discuss the Omid Scobie book and their outreach, in parentheses, but most importantly, figure out some sort of action plan to ensure my mom's safety from these egregious paps. My afternoon is free from 12 p.m. onward. Let me know if there's a time that could work for you. Thank you, M." I don't know about you, but being a semi-intelligent person, this screams, yeah, Omid Scobie reached out, and she has just acknowledged it. So in the dismissal document, it just said that Meghan denies that Omid and Carolyn reached out to her about this book. Well, nope, there it is. And then secondly, I am calling BS on the fact that the egregious paparazzi taunted Doria. That was not the catalyst as to why Meghan felt that it was so urgent that her and Jason sit down to talk about this. Take a look at the date. It says November 12, 2018. That would be Monday. So what was going on during the weekend? It was Remembrance Weekend. So why is this important? Well, around that time, the Sussexes just recently came back from their tour in Australia. Now remember, while they were away, that's when Jason Knopf filed his reports about the Duchess's bullying behavior and did show the information to William. And I believe that it was this weekend is where everything came to a head. The argument with William and Harry, and then also the creation or the inception of doing this book. And the reason that she wanted to meet with Jason Knopf so urgently was because everything was starting to unravel. And that began on the Friday, November 8th, 2018, when The Sun published first glimpses of Meghan's bad behavior. I've said this in the past, but that Netflix mockumentary was made to help her in this court case. Let's go back to episode 4 and check out this time in history and what they said.
I think Australia was a real turning point because they were so popular.
And then I don't understand what happened after that.
Okay, Abigail, let me enlighten you.
The issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who was born to do this. That upsets people. It shifts the balance. Because you've been led to believe that the only way that your charities can succeed and the only way that your reputation can be grown or improved is if you're on the front pages of those newspapers. First time that the penny dropped for her.
You heard what he said, the first time. So this was early on.
Em and I spent the night in a room in Buckingham Palace after an event where every single member of the family, senior members of the family had been, including the Queen.
You guys all recognize where they were, Albert Hall, for the Remembrance Festival, right?
The next morning, they'd set up breakfast for Harry and I.
And on the front page of the Telegraph, Meghan.
I went, oh my God.
This is a bold-faced lie.
But it's not my fault. And I said, I know. And my mum felt the same.
And he's doing this all to cover up the bullying allegations because his wife is so wretched. This was specifically to paint the narrative that the family was jealous of them. And the lies that Harry is telling about the family leaking and planting these stories about him and his wife because they felt threatened by their popularity. Insert now the story about the headlines of Meghan being called a diva and that the Queen had been blasting Meghan. So now we're back here to the point that I'm trying to make. So they mention that they were at this event and they show photos of them being at Albert Hall for the Remembrance Festival. And they also show this headline. Please notice the date at the bottom left-hand corner. It says November 13th, 2018. So here's where the story falls down and I blow it up. So, newsflash, Meghan didn't make the front pages after this event. This was the front page for the weekend. Meghan was nowhere to be found. But even more deceitful was that they chose to use 2019's picture right before they were leaving to jet off to Canada. She looked like in 2018. But they don't want you to know that because one, she wasn't on any cover, and two, she was a complete sourpuss because she had been called out that weekend, and I believe that Harry and William had been fighting. Now, let's take a look at some of that footage from that night so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. First, let's start off at looking at how pissed off William looks. Look at his face. He absolutely hates this woman. It's like you cannot deny who he's looking at. And look how angry Harry looks. So you know that they got into something. Now look at this clip in this video. Meghan and Harry look miserable because they're not, well, we know that Meghan doesn't like the fact that she's sitting in the back as opposed to William and Catherine being up front. Not to mention, she does take a few glances over to them, actually more than once, and I'll point that out in a second. She absolutely hates being there to a point where she's so disrespectful that she doesn't even clap for the veterans. While everybody is showing respect and clapping for these heroes, she's standing there holding her moon bump. This woman is so rude. The best is this woman watching her and thinking the same exact thing. She is so envious. And I bet she was sitting there thinking about, okay, this is how I'm going to go about getting this book together. Yeah, and like anybody really believes that Doria was under siege by these paparazzi? Get over yourself, Meghan. Like seriously, go get professional help to get that compulsive lying under control because it's not helping. And there's that same woman looking at her again. And this is towards the end of the video. Women know a fraud when we see it, especially if they continuously keep checking out your man or your husband. We know these things. There's no doubt that Catherine knew that Meghan was causing all this trouble. And also, she's caught her several times looking at her man. In this scene, she actually gives Meghan another look. And again, we can tell that Catherine intimidates Meghan hardcore. And you know Meghan hates her for it because she knows that Catherine's so much more superior. Catherine is such a boss. God bless. Catherine, if you're listening to this, mad respect. Stay fabulous. Okay, so getting back to this dismissal, it just proved to you that A, she lied there. Now let's go on to B. So this section says, among the ways in which the two pleadings differ, the FAC dropped all claims based on the supposed December 10, 2018 email from Meghan to Knopf that plaintiff had alleged were the basis for Scobie and Duran's allegedly defamatory statements in Finding Freedom. As set out in the original motion to dismiss, these claims were both time-based and not actionable for other reasons. Nonetheless, the FAC continues to base its claims on finding freedom, without ever explaining how Meghan is responsible for statements made in a book written by two unrelated and independent professional authors known for reporting on Britain's royal family. The sole allegation on this point is ambiguous and conclusory. The false information contained in the book came from Meghan herself through her agent and communications secretary. Actually, no, it's not, and here's why. So they're trying to say that that email that was issued on December 10, 2018, for reference, we're talking about this email, is no longer valid or can be used because of the statute of limitations. Now, with that being said, perhaps that may be true, but I do believe that she's still in the window of statute of limitations because this is going off of the court case that was held in November of 2021. And she did file before the statute of that limitation was over. So I do believe that the contents within that court session and all the evidence that was in there, which incorporated this email, does count. But I'm not a lawyer. This just seems like logic sense. Meghan's legal team knows that this email is crucial connecting Meghan back to this book. So that's why they're pushing so hard to get it thrown out. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm betting that Meghan and her lawyers are betting on the fact that nobody here in the United States listened to this court case, and she's probably right. But I did. So if the email can't be admissible in court, then this should be, because it literally anchors Meghan down to the ocean floor in tying her to the book. So in that court session, I took the liberty to add the timestamps for you in case you want to go back and check it out and listen for yourself. The lawyer for A&L reads out and says, "But there is a lot of evidence in the application for fresh evidence about the extent of the cooperation with the book," meaning Meghan's involvement. Then at 5237, the lawyer then directs the judges to go to tab 6B and then go to page 74.9. And this, if Samantha needs this information, this is where to find it. It's an actual email to Mr. Knopf from Meghan. And this is what she writes. "You know how personally frustrated this is a particular point to tie this narrative. But given we are being asked to cooperate with this evidently authoritative biography, I need to share I will not be comfortable doing so if this person," this is an authorities tweeting us below, "can we set up a chat? I feel he needs to be back briefed as soon as possible if there's any conversation about working with them moving forward." So here you go. This is talking about Omid Scobie setting up a meeting with Jason Knopf to talk about getting this guy on board with her narrative. I'm going to pause right there and let you guys digest this information. Tell me what you think. I will be going through the email in the next video and continuing on with this. But for now, I'm going to take a pause. Don't you worry. I will be back soon with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
It was such a fraud.